Maya groaned as the shrill ringing of her phone pierced through the silence of her bedroom. She squinted at the clock. It was 3 a.m., just a couple of hours after she had returned from her night shift at the hospital. With a sigh, she grabbed the phone, expecting it to be the hospital calling her back for an emergency. "Hello?" she mumbled groggily. "Maya, it's me." The familiar voice of her husband Reed crackled through the line. "We need to talk." Maya sat upright, suddenly wide awake. There was something in Reed's tone that made her stomach churn with dread. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. "I'm leaving you," Reed stated bluntly. "I've met someone else, and I want a divorce." Maya's heart dropped to the pit of her stomach as the words sank in. She had been happily married to Reed for over 20 years, and they had a son together. How could he do this to their family? "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. "After everything we've been through together?" Reed let out a callous chuckle that sent shivers down Maya's spine. "Come on, Maya. You're no spring chicken anymore. I've found someone younger, someone who can give me the excitement and passion that you can't." Maya's hands trembled as she clutched the phone tighter. "Who is she? How long has this been going on?" "Her name is Jill, and that's none of your business." Reed snapped. "I want you out of the house by the end of the week. I've already spoken to a lawyer, and I'll be generous with the settlement, but I want a clean break." Maya's mind raced, trying to process the bombshell that Reed had just dropped on her. She had always been devoted to their marriage, working long hours as a nurse to support their family while Reed pursued his career. And now he was casting her aside like she meant nothing. "You arrogant bastard," Maya spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you can just waltz in and out of my life as you please? You have no idea what you've just unleashed." Reed scoffed. "Save the drama, Maya. Just pack your things and go. I'll be in touch with the divorce papers." And with that, he hung up, leaving Maya seething with rage and betrayal. As the tears streamed down her cheeks, she made a vow to herself. Reed and his little mistress would pay dearly for what they had done to her family. This was just the beginning. After the initial shock of Reed's betrayal wore off, Maya knew she had to take action. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, would only fuel her anger and despair. She needed to gather her wits and fight back. The first order of business was to find a good divorce lawyer. Maya didn't want to go through some run-of-the-mill attorney who would just rubber stamp whatever settlement Reed proposed. No, she needed someone who was a shark, someone who could ruthlessly protect her interests and make Reed pay for what he had done. Maya spent the next few days scouring the internet and making phone calls until she finally found the perfect candidate, Samantha Weston, a pit bull of a lawyer known for her tenacity and her ability to sniff out hidden assets in messy divorces. At their first meeting, Maya laid out the situation bluntly. "My husband is leaving me for another woman," she stated, her voice laced with barely contained fury. "He thinks he can just discard me like a piece of trash after over 20 years of marriage." Samantha's eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping on the desk. "I see," she said, her tone businesslike. "And I take it you want to make sure he doesn't get away with it?" Maya nodded fiercely. "I want to bleed him dry," she hissed, "and I want to expose him and his little mistress for the snakes they are." A predatory smile spread across Samantha's face. "Then you've come to the right place, Mrs. Westwood." Over the next few weeks, Maya and Samantha worked tirelessly, combing through financial records, tracking down hidden assets, and building an airtight case against Reed. It turned out that the bastard had been squirreling away money for years, no doubt in preparation for his little midlife crisis fling. "Look at this," Samantha said one day, sliding a sheaf of papers across the desk. "He's got a secret offshore account with over $500,000 in it, and here are the records of him transferring funds to a woman named Jill Hansen. I'm guessing that's his little piece on the side." Maya's hands trembled with rage as she looked at the damning evidence. "That snake," she spat. "He's been playing me for a fool all these years." Samantha patted her hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, Maya. We're going to make sure he doesn't get away with any of it." With Samantha's guidance, Maya systematically began freezing Reed's accounts and cutting off his access to the funds he had stashed away. She also gathered evidence of his emotional infidelity, documenting phone records and hidden email exchanges between him and his mistress. Finally, the day came when Maya was ready to confront Reed face to face. She arranged a meeting at a neutral location, under the pretense of discussing a settlement. But when Reed showed up, cocky and arrogant as ever, he was in for a rude awakening. "What's this about, Maya?" he sneered, taking a seat across from her. "I thought we were going to keep things civil." Maya fixed him with a steely gaze, her hands clenched into fists under the table. "Civil?" she echoed, her voice dripping with contempt. "You want to talk about civil after you've been lying and cheating on me for God knows how long?" Reed's smug expression faltered as Maya began laying out the evidence, the bank statements, the emails, the phone records. With each damning piece of proof, his face grew paler and paler until he was visibly sweating. How did you find all of this?" he stammered, his bravado evaporating. Maya leaned back in her chair, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. "I have my ways," she said simply. "And this is just the beginning, Reed. You and your little whore are going to pay for what you've done to me and our family." As she watched her soon-to-be ex-husband squirm, Maya knew that she was just getting started. The real battle was yet to come, but for the first time since Reed had dropped his bombshell, she felt a sense of empowerment. She was no longer the victim. She was the hunter, and Reed and his mistress were the prey. With Samantha's help, Maya wasted no time in striking back at Reed and his mistress, Jill. The first step was to freeze all of Reed's hidden accounts and cut off his access to the funds he had squirreled away. "We need to move quickly," Samantha advised, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Once Reed realizes what's happening, he'll try to move the money around and hide it elsewhere." Maya nodded, her jaw set in a grim line. "Do whatever it takes. I want him to feel the same panic and betrayal that I felt when he dropped that bombshell on me." Over the next few days, Maya watched with a sense of grim satisfaction as Samantha systematically dismantled Reed's financial web. One by one, his secret accounts were frozen, his credit cards canceled, and his access to funds cut off. When Reed finally realized what was happening, he came storming into Samantha's office, his face flushed with rage. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, slamming his fist on the desk. "Why can't I access my accounts?" Samantha leaned back in her chair, her eyes cool and appraising. "I think you know exactly why, Mr. Westwood," she said calmly. "Your little financial shenanigans have been exposed, and we're taking steps to ensure you don't try to hide any more assets." Reed's eyes darted to Maya, who was sitting in the corner, watching the confrontation unfold. "You," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You did this, didn't you?" Maya met his gaze levelly, her expression betraying no emotion. "You brought this on yourself, Reed," she said quietly. "You thought you could just discard me like yesterday's trash and ride off into the sunset with your little trollop. Well, think again." Reed's face contorted with rage, and for a moment Maya thought he might strike her. But then Samantha cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "I'd be very careful about how you proceed, Mr. Westwood," she said, her tone laced with subtle menace. "We have all the evidence we need to ensure you get the divorce settlement you deserve, which is to say next to nothing." Reed's shoulders slumped, and he sank into a chair, his bravado deflating like a punctured balloon. "You can't do this," he muttered, his voice tinged with desperation. "That money was mine. I earned it." Samantha shook her head, a predatory smile playing on her lips. "Not according to the law," she said. "And by the time we're done, you'll be lucky if you can afford a cardboard box to live in." As Reed sat there, his head in his hands, Maya felt a surge of satisfaction. For years, she had been the dutiful wife, putting her own dreams and ambitions on hold to support Reed's career and raise their son. And this was how he had repaid her, by betraying her in the most callous and cruel way possible. But now, the tables had turned. Maya was the one holding all the cards, and Reed was the one who was about to lose everything. As she watched him sitting there, defeated and broken, she couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. This was just the beginning, she knew. There was still a long road ahead, with more battles to be fought and more emotional turmoil to endure. But for the first time since Reed's bombshell revelation, Maya felt a sense of hope. She was no longer the victim. She was the architect of her own revenge, and she was going to make damn sure that Reed and his mistress paid for what they had done. As she left Samantha's office, Maya held her head high, her stride confident and purposeful. She was a woman reborn, and she was just getting started. As Maya began to piece together her plan for revenge against Reed and his mistress Jill, she found an unexpected ally in her own son, Ethan. It had been a few days since the confrontation at Samantha's office, and Maya was sitting at home, poring over the mountain of evidence they had gathered against Reed. That's when Ethan walked in, his brow furrowed with concern. "Mom, is everything okay?" he asked tentatively. "I've been hearing some rumors around town about you and Dad." Maya sighed, running a hand through her hair. She hadn't wanted to burden Ethan with the messy details of her failing marriage, but she knew she couldn't keep him in the dark forever. "Your father has been unfaithful," she said bluntly. "He's been carrying on an affair with another woman for God knows how long, and now he wants to leave me for her." Ethan's eyes widened in shock and then narrowed in anger. "That bastard!" he spat. "How could he do that to you after everything you've sacrificed for this family?" Maya shook her head warily. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I'm not going to let him get away with it. Samantha and I are building a case against him, and we're going to make sure he pays for what he's done." To her surprise, Ethan's expression hardened with determination. "Then I want to help," he said firmly. "Dad's not the only one with skills around here." Maya raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Ethan had always been a whiz with computers and technology, and she couldn't help but wonder what he had in mind. Over the next few days, Ethan became her trusted ally in the fight against Reed and Jill. Using his hacking skills and intimate knowledge of the dark web, he was able to uncover a wealth of information about Jill, her background, her financial history, and even some unsavory details about her past relationships. "Looks like our dear Jill has a bit of a track record," Ethan said grimly, sliding a sheaf of printouts across the table to Maya. "She's been involved with at least 2 other married men before Dad, and she's got a knack for making sure she gets a nice little payout when things go south." Maya's eyes narrowed as she scanned the documents. "The little gold digger," she muttered. "So that's her game." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "Exactly. And it looks like she's been working Dad over for months, maybe even years, slowly convincing him to squirrel away money and assets for their little love nest." Maya felt a surge of white-hot anger coursing through her veins. Not only had Reed betrayed her in the most callous way possible, but he had been planning this whole sordid affair with Jill for God knows how long, right under her nose. "We're going to take them down," she said, her voice low and trembling with fury. "Both of them. They're going to wish they never crossed paths with the Westwood family." Ethan reached across the table and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "Don't worry, Mom," he said, his eyes glinting with determination. "We've got this. Dad and his little side piece don't stand a chance against us." As Maya looked at her son, she felt a surge of pride and gratitude. Despite the betrayal and heartbreak she was facing, she wasn't alone in this fight. Ethan was her rock, her partner in crime, and together they were going to make sure that Reed and Jill paid for every ounce of pain and humiliation they had caused. With a newfound sense of purpose, Maya turned her attention back to the evidence laid out before her. It was time to start putting their plan into action. With Ethan's help, Maya had uncovered a wealth of damning information about Jill and her history of preying on wealthy married men. Armed with this knowledge, she knew it was time to take the next step in her plan for revenge. "We need to bring Reed and Jill down in a big way," Maya said grimly, spreading out the evidence they had gathered on the kitchen table. "A way that will humiliate them and make them realize the full extent of what they've done." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "I'm with you, Mom. Just say the word, and we'll make it happen." After some thought, Maya came up with the perfect plan. She would arrange a meeting with Reed and Jill under the guise of discussing a potential settlement for the divorce. But instead of a civilized negotiation, it would be a full-on confrontation, with all of their dirty laundry laid bare for the world to see. "I want them to feel the same shame and humiliation that they've inflicted on me," Maya said, her eyes flashing with determination. "I want to strip away all of their lies and deceptions, and expose them for the snakes that they truly are. Ethan grinned, a wolfish glint in his eye. Consider it done, Mom. Over the next few days, Maya and Ethan worked tirelessly to set the stage for their grand reveal. They rented out a private room at an upscale restaurant and quietly extended invitations to a select group of Reed and Jill's friends and colleagues, people whose opinions and respect meant everything to the vain, status-conscious couple. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Maya took a deep breath as she smoothed her hands over her sleek, tailored dress, steeling herself for the confrontation to come. "You ready for this, Mom?" Ethan asked, giving her arm a reassuring squeeze. Maya nodded, her jaw set with determination. "More than ready," she replied. "It's time for these two to face the music." When Reed and Jill arrived, they were all smiles and false pleasantries, completely oblivious to the trap that had been laid for them. As they made their way to the private room, Maya couldn't help but notice the smug, self-satisfied looks on their faces, as if they had already won, as if they thought they could simply waltz away from the wreckage of their betrayal without consequence. But as soon as they stepped through the door and saw the gathered crowd of their friends and colleagues, their expressions shifted to ones of confusion and unease. "What's going on here?" Reed demanded, his voice wavering slightly. Maya stepped forward, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "What's going on, dear husband, is that your little secret is out," she said, her voice ringing out clearly in the hushed room. "Everyone here knows about your sordid affair with this woman and the lies and deceit you've been peddling for God knows how long." Jill's face went pale, and she clutched at Reed's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his flesh. "Reed, what is she talking about?" she hissed, her voice tinged with panic. But Reed could only stare at Maya, his mouth opening and closing like a landed fish as the full weight of her revelation sank in. With a grim sense of satisfaction, Maya began to lay out the evidence they had gathered, the financial records, the emails, the sordid details of Jill's history as a gold digger and home wrecker. With each damning piece of proof, the murmurs and gasps from the assembled crowd grew louder, until the room was a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. As Maya reached the climax of her exposé, she fixed Reed and Jill with a look of pure undisguised contempt. "You two thought you could betray me, betray our family, and just walk away without consequence," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Well, you were wrong, dead wrong." In that moment, as she looked at the ashen, stricken faces of her soon-to-be ex-husband and his mistress, Maya felt a surge of triumph and vindication. They had been laid bare, their carefully constructed facade of lies and deceit torn away, leaving them exposed and vulnerable before the very people whose respect and admiration they craved. As the crowd erupted in a chorus of condemnation and scathing whispers, Reed and Jill could only cling to each other, their eyes wide with shock and humiliation. In that moment, Maya knew that she had won, not just the legal battle, but the war for her dignity and self-respect. She was no longer the wronged wife, the silent victim of her husband's betrayal. She was the avenging angel, the one who had struck back with righteous fury and emerged victorious. And as she stood there, basking in the sweet taste of her hard-won revenge, Maya knew that this was just the beginning. The aftermath of the grand reveal at the restaurant was even more satisfying than Maya could have imagined. As the shocked murmurs and whispers of condemnation swirled around them, Reed and Jill could only stand there, paralyzed with humiliation and shame. "How could you do this to me?" Jill hissed at Reed, her perfectly coiffed facade crumbling as tears of rage streamed down her face. "You said nobody would find out." Reed opened and closed his mouth like a gasping fish, but no words came out. His usual arrogant bravado was nowhere to be found, replaced by a look of utter defeat and despair. Maya couldn't help but relish the sight of the two of them, so thoroughly exposed and brought low. After months of planning and strategizing, her revenge was finally complete, and oh, how sweet it tasted. But she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. "You two haven't seen anything yet," she said, her voice ringing out loud and clear above the clamor. "This is just the beginning." Jill's head whipped around, her eyes narrowing with rage. "What are you talking about, you crazy bitch?" she spat, her carefully cultivated veneer of innocence cracking even further. Maya simply smiled. a cold, predatory smile that sent a shiver down Jill's spine. "Oh, you'll see," she said ominously. "You'll both see." Over the next few weeks, Maya made good on her promise. With the help of Samantha and Ethan, she unleashed a relentless legal and public relations assault on Reed and Jill, determined to strip them of every last shred of dignity and financial security. In the courtroom, Samantha was a force of nature, decimating Reed's feeble attempts at defense with a barrage of evidence and legal maneuvering. Time and again, the judge ruled in Maya's favor, awarding her a sizable portion of Reed's assets and ordering him to pay punitive damages for emotional distress and financial betrayal. "You brought this on yourself, Mr. Westwood," the judge said sternly, as Reed sat there, his head in his hands. "Your actions were reprehensible, and you will pay the price." But the real coup de grace came outside the courtroom, where Ethan and Maya waged a scorched-earth campaign to destroy Jill's reputation and social standing. Using the information they had uncovered about her sordid past, they leaked damning details to the press and circulated them on social media, painting her as a manipulative gold digger who preyed on wealthy men for her own personal gain. Within weeks, Jill's carefully cultivated image was in tatters. She was shunned by her former friends and social circles, her name mud in the eyes of the very people whose approval she craved so desperately. "How could you do this to me?" she sobbed to Maya one day, cornering her in the courthouse parking lot. "I was just trying to find happiness, like anyone else." Maya fixed her with a withering glare, her contempt for the other woman radiating off her in waves. "Happiness?" she scoffed. "Is that what you call destroying families and ruining lives? You got exactly what you deserved, Jill. And if you know what's good for you, you'll slink back into whatever hole you crawled out of and disappear for good." As Jill dissolved into a fresh bout of tears, Maya turned on her heel and walked away, her head held high. She had won, not just the legal battle, but the war for her dignity and self-respect. Reed and Jill had been utterly decimated, their lives and reputations in ruins. And as she looked towards the future, Maya felt a sense of hope and possibility that she hadn't felt in years. She was free from the shackles of her failed marriage, free from the weight of Reed's betrayal, and free to start anew. With Ethan by her side and a sizable settlement in her pocket, the world was her oyster. And as she made plans to invest in a new business venture, something she had always dreamed of doing, but never had the courage or means to pursue. Maya knew that this was just the beginning of her new life. The road ahead would be full of challenges, no doubt, but she was ready to face them head-on, stronger and more resilient than ever before. She had stared down the abyss of heartbreak and betrayal, and she had emerged victorious, her spirit unbroken and her thirst for justice quenched. As she walked into the bright, promising future that lay ahead, Maya couldn't help but smile. She was a new woman, forged in the fires of her own hard-won revenge, and nothing and no one would ever break her again. As the legal battles raged on in the courtroom, Maya found herself engaged in a ferocious tug-of-war with Reed and his lawyers. They had clearly underestimated her resolve and the strength of the case that Samantha had built against him. Time and again, Reed's team would try to poke holes in the evidence, or argue that Maya's actions had been overly vindictive and damaging to his reputation. But Samantha was having none of it, countering their every move with a ruthless precision that left them floundering. "Your client's behavior was reprehensible, counselor," Samantha said coolly during one particularly heated exchange. "He betrayed his wife's trust in the most callous and calculated way possible. If his reputation has suffered, it's entirely his own doing." Reed shot Maya a venomous glare from across the courtroom, his face flushed with impotent rage. But Maya simply met his gaze head-on, her expression one of steely determination. She wasn't about to back down, not after everything she had been through. As the weeks dragged on, the legal maneuvering intensified, with both sides digging in their heels and refusing to give an inch. But slowly, inexorably, the weight of the evidence began to shift in Maya's favor. One by one, the judge's rulings chipped away at Reed's defenses, awarding Maya a larger share of the marital assets and ordering Reed to pay hefty damages for his emotional and financial betrayal. "This court finds that Mr. Westwood's actions were not only egregious but premeditated," the judge said sternly, his gavel punctuating each word like a hammer blow. He systematically concealed assets and lied to his wife, all in service of his own selfish desires. Such behavior cannot and will not be tolerated. As the judge continued to read out the details of the settlement, Maya felt a surge of vindication coursing through her veins. This was it, the moment she had been fighting for, the moment when Reed's arrogance and deceit would finally catch up to him in a way he could never have imagined. When the final tally was read out, the look on Reed's face was one of utter disbelief and despair. Not only had he lost a significant portion of his assets and savings, but he had also been ordered to pay Maya a staggering sum in damages, a figure that would effectively cripple him financially for years to come. "This can't be happening," he muttered, his head in his hands as his lawyers attempted to console him. "How could she do this to me?" Maya couldn't help but let out a derisive snort at his words. How could he still be playing the victim after everything he had put her through? The sheer audacity of the man was staggering. As she left the courthouse that day, basking in the glow of her hard-won victory, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction that went beyond mere revenge. She had faced down her betrayer, her tormentor, and she had emerged victorious. Not just legally, but morally and emotionally as well. Reed's arrogance and conceit had been his downfall, and now he was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life and reputation. And as for Jill, the woman who had so callously helped him destroy their marriage, well, she had already paid a heavy price. Her name and social standing in tatters, thanks to Maya and Ethan's relentless campaign of exposure. As Maya looked towards the future, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and possibility. With her legal battles finally behind her and a sizable settlement in hand, she was free to pursue her dreams and start anew, unburdened by the weight of her past. And this time, she vowed, no one would ever hold her back or underestimate her again. She was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had stared down the abyss of betrayal and emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. As she climbed into her car and pulled away from the courthouse, leaving the ghosts of her failed marriage behind, Maya couldn't help but smile. The road ahead was wide open, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead her next. With the legal battles finally behind her, Maya felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The long, arduous road to justice and revenge had taken its toll, but in the end she had emerged victorious, her spirit unbroken, her dignity intact. As she sat down with Ethan to discuss their plans for the future, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement bubbling up within her. For the first time in years, she was truly free. Free from the shackles of her failed marriage, free from the weight of Reed's betrayal, and free to pursue her dreams without fear or constraint. "So, what's next, Mom?" Ethan asked, a hopeful glint in his eye. "You've got a pretty hefty settlement to work with. Any ideas on how you want to spend it?" Maya paused for a moment, considering her options. In truth, she had been toying with an idea for years, a dream that she had always pushed aside in service of her family and her marriage. But now, with the world at her feet and a sizable nest egg at her disposal, she felt like the time was finally right. "You know how I've always talked about opening my own little cafe or bakery?" she said, her voice brimming with excitement. "Well, I think I'm finally going to do it." Ethan's face lit up with a broad grin. "That's amazing, Mom," he exclaimed. "I always knew you had it in you, and hey, with my tech skills and your baking talents, we could make one hell of a team." Maya couldn't help but chuckle at her son's enthusiasm. Throughout the long, grueling ordeal with Reed and Jill, Ethan had been her rock, her unwavering support system and partner in crime. And now, as they embarked on this new chapter of their lives, it felt only natural that they should do it together. "You're absolutely right," she said, reaching across the table to give his hand a squeeze. "We make a great team, and with your help, I know we can make this little dream of mine a reality." Over the next few weeks, Maya and Ethan threw themselves into the planning and preparation for their new venture. They scouted locations, pored over business plans, and even took a few cooking classes together to brush up on their skills. It was a whirlwind of activity, but Maya thrived on the energy and excitement of it all. After years of living in the shadow of Reed's betrayal, she felt alive again, like she was finally taking control of her own destiny and forging a path that was truly her own. And as the pieces began to fall into place, with a prime location secured and the necessary permits and licenses obtained, Maya couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment that went far beyond the mere act of opening a business. This was her victory lap, her chance to rise from the ashes of her past and emerge as a stronger, more resilient version of herself. She had faced down her demons, her tormentors, and she had come out on top, not just legally and financially, but emotionally and spiritually as well. As the grand opening day drew near, Maya found herself filled with a nervous excitement that was tempered by a quiet confidence. She knew, deep down, that she was ready for this, ready to take on the world and prove that she was more than just a wronged wife or a victim of circumstance. And when the doors finally opened and the first customers began to trickle in, drawn by the tantalizing aroma of fresh-baked pastries and the warm, inviting atmosphere, Maya felt a surge of pride and accomplishment that was unlike anything she had ever experienced before. This was her baby, her creation, a tangible manifestation of her hard-won victory over adversity and betrayal. And as she looked around at the smiling faces of her customers, she couldn't help but feel like she had finally found her true calling. As the day drew to a close and the last customer had been served, Maya and Ethan stood side by side, surveying the fruits of their labor with a sense of quiet satisfaction. "We did it, Mom," Ethan said, giving her a gentle nudge with his elbow. "We really did it." Maya nodded, a contented smile playing across her lips. "Yes, we did," she replied. "And this is just the beginning." As she looked towards the bright, promising future that lay ahead, Maya knew that she had finally found her path, a path forged not by the expectations of others, but by her own strength, determination, and unwavering spirit. And as she prepared to embark on this new chapter of her life, she couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude, not just for the hard-won lessons and triumphs of her past, but for the simple joy and freedom that came with finally being true to herself. It had been a long, winding road, but in the end, Maya had emerged victorious, not just over her betrayers, but over the doubts and insecurities that had once threatened to consume her. And as she looked ahead to the endless possibilities that awaited her, she knew that nothing and no one would ever hold her back again.
Oh, look, the infertile woman is crying. I can guess why.
At 33, I was at the gynecologist and had just received my results. I was sobbing in the lobby. But then, I bumped into my ex-husband, who left me because of my infertility.
So you are here. You must have remarried. And you're still going through infertility treatments, huh? Crying again because you can't have kids. That's just sad.
That's none of your business.
Cold to your ex-husband, huh? But you're still holding on to hope. You will never be able to conceive, no matter how hard you try. I feel sorry for your current husband, having an infertile wife like you.
He kept mocking me relentlessly, laughing heartily. My anger reached its peak. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I'm pregnant with twins."
What?
After this, he was in for a rude awakening. "My name is Sarah. I'm a 33-year-old office worker. Actually, I'm divorced. I'd like to tell you about my horrendous previous marriage. At 24, I met my ex-husband Peter through a friend. He was 2 years older and worked at a very big company. I was inexperienced in love and shy, so I was easily swayed by his aggressive pursuit. Even when we were still dating, he would always tell me,
I want 3 kids in the future, boys preferably. Playing catch with my son has always been my dream.
As our relationship grew, I found myself wanting to fulfill that dream for him. And at 26, we got married. When we visited his parents in the countryside, his mother said to me, "You are young. You will probably have lots of babies." At that time, I was young and didn't feel pressured. I cheerfully agreed. But when we talked about the wedding, Peter's mood darkened.
A wedding? We don't need to do all that.
What? I was slightly shocked. I had saved money, expecting a wedding ceremony when the time came. I want a beautiful wedding dress, and I want my family and friends to celebrate the special day. When I expressed this, Peter tried to reason with me.
We want kids soon, right? Kids cost a lot of money. It's better to save for them than waste money on a ceremony.
But
don't you care about our future kids? You won't be a good mom thinking like that.
Okay. And just like that, my wedding dream vanished. We got married in plain clothes, with just a priest. My parents and friends were disappointed, but it was what it was. Some people enjoy their newlywed life, but Peter was different. We started trying for a baby right after getting married. I loved him and wanted children too, so I went along with it. But my married life was constantly troubling. It was because Peter never did any housework. I continued working after marriage, so we were both earning. But he refused to discuss sharing household chores. He even said to me,
When you get pregnant, you can be a full-time housewife. Practice your housework skills now.
I opposed this. But we don't have kids yet, and we both work. We should share the chores.
Listen, I earn money outside. You handle the house and kids. That's how marriage works, right?
That's not fair. Despite this, he insisted on splitting our expenses equally and kept more money for himself. He earned more, working at a big company. I screamed and saved, preparing for when we'd have children. 6 months into our marriage, Peter complained.
Hey, it's been half a year. Aren't you pregnant yet?
Well, we were trying to conceive naturally, but there was no sign of pregnancy.
What's going on? I planned for you to be pregnant by now.
I didn't know what to say and stumbled over my words.
Fine, just keep trying. I want a kid within a year of marriage.
His behavior was selfish, and I honestly found those times painful. But I wanted children and felt it was my duty as a wife. So I complied with his frequent demands. A year passed, and I still wasn't pregnant. When I came out of the bathroom and said, "It didn't work this time either," he clicked his tongue.
Again?
Peter, don't act like that.
It's your fault for not getting pregnant. You've messed up my life plan.
Don't say that. He left the room irritably. That's why my mother-in-law started calling frequently. Sarah, no baby yet? Sorry, not yet. Are you two really trying? She was blunt and direct. As I hesitated to respond, she continued. Maybe the food in the city isn't good for you. I will send you some vegetables from here next time. Okay. The cardboard box that arrived was packed with vegetables she grew. Gradually, I started to feel the pressure of not being able to have children. Even in our second year of marriage, there was still no sign of us having a child.
So, how about this month?
Peter would ask me this every month. It seems not yet. When I answered, his mood immediately soured.
Again? When will you ever get pregnant?
I'm sorry.
Did you know that if a couple can conceive after a year, they are considered infertile?
The word infertile, coming from his mouth, weighed heavily on my heart. As I fell silent, Peter, annoyed, said,
You should go to the hospital and get checked out.
Okay, I will. So I went to the gynecologist. I told the doctor we weren't able to conceive and got tested. I was told I might have an ovulation disorder. I was shocked. So it was me after all? When I came back from the gynecologist, Peter asked,
What did they say?
They said I might have an ovulation disorder. When I answered, he reacted as if he had won a victory.
See? I knew it. You're the reason we can't have kids.
I'm sorry, but they said treatment is possible.
Of course it is. Make sure you get treated. To think I ended up with an infertile wife. I have such bad luck.
I'm sorry. I silently endured his harsh words, believing the problem was indeed mine. I continued treatment while visiting the gynecologist. I got my body in a condition where the doctors said pregnancy shouldn't be a problem. But still, there was no sign of pregnancy. By then, calls from my mother-in-law had turned sarcastic. I heard from Peter the problem is with you. I'm sorry. I'm getting treatment. Poor Peter. You can't get pregnant because you're not trying hard enough. I'm sorry. Instead of apologizing, try harder with your diet and exercise to get pregnant. Yes. The pressure and stress started taking a toll on my health, but that only made it even harder to conceive. I tried hard to keep my health up and continued my efforts to conceive. Just before our third anniversary, a crisis struck.
Hey, what about this month?
I'm sorry.
You, sit right here.
Peter ordered me roughly, and I sat at the dining table, trembling. He silently took out something. It was a signed divorce agreement. What? This is...
You think I'd continue our marriage with someone who can't have kids?
He said this threateningly. But come on, a divorce is too much.
The infertility problem is only yours. Didn't the hospital say so?
I'm getting treatment now, and I'm ovulating.
Then why aren't you pregnant? Answer me.
Why don't you come to the clinic with me next time?
Are you trying to blame me now?
Peter's face turned red, and he slammed his fist on the table. I shrank back at his intensity.
I've wasted 3 years on someone who can't get pregnant. What a waste of time.
I remained silent, pale-faced. He continued.
My mom said it too. If there is no child in 3 years, leave. There is no need to stay with a woman who can't have kids.
I teared up, but he just glared at me coldly.
You think crying will solve everything? Don't be so naive. I will leave you for someone younger and have my own kids.
He shoved the divorce agreement at me, insisting I sign it. My hands trembling, I signed it, and he watched with satisfaction.
It's so pathetic. Divorced and infertile at 29. Who would want you now? You will have to live alone.
His words stabbed me like daggers. He put away the divorce papers and said,
Get your things and leave by tomorrow. There will be no property division.
What? But...
I will keep our savings as compensation for dealing with you. Leave with nothing but your clothes.
And that's how my 3 years of marriage ended, with me being discarded. I returned to my parents' house and continued working. My family welcomed me back warmly. 3 years later, the wounds from my marriage to Peter had finally healed. At 32, I met a man named Dustin at my regular cafe. Dustin was kind, had a wonderful sense of humor, and a wonderful man. After several coffee dates, he looked me in the eyes and said,
Sarah, would you consider dating me with the intention of marriage?
I hesitated, and he looked at me kindly. You know I'm divorced, right? I wasn't planning on marrying again.
Why?
It was then that I first told him about my infertility. He listened intently, holding my hand.
What if I said infertility doesn't matter?
What?
I just want to be with you, Sarah. I really like you.
Dustin. I was sure that I also had feelings for him. So we started dating with marriage in mind. After a year of dating, we visited his parents. Even after hearing that I might not be able to have children, his parents warmly welcomed me. Later, Dustin and I had the wedding of my dreams. It was a small ceremony with just family and close friends, but it became an unforgettable memory for me. In our married life, he took the lead in household chores, and we lived a life full of mutual care and understanding. I finally found my haven. About a year after living with Dustin, I started feeling unwell and went to the gynecologist alone. After the examination, I received an unexpected news in the doctor's office. While waiting in the lobby, I mulled over the doctor's words. No, this can't be happening. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, and I started sobbing. Then someone approached me.
Well, if it isn't Sarah.
Looking up through tear-streaked eyes, I saw my ex-husband Peter. He smirked condescendingly at me.
Oh, look. The infertile woman is crying. I can guess why.
As I remained silent, he continued smugly.
So you are here. You must have remarried. And you're still going through infertility treatments, huh? Crying again because you can't have kids. That's just sad.
That's none of our business.
Cold to your ex-husband, huh? But you're still holding on to hope. You will never be able to conceive, no matter how hard you try. I feel sorry for your current husband, having an infertile wife like you.
He laughed heartily as he continued.
So how did you manage to remarry? Did you keep your infidelity a secret? Make sure you tell your husband, I'm a failure who can't have kids.
As he relentlessly taunted me, I reached my limit. How dare he say this now? I looked Peter straight in the eye and told him, I'm pregnant with twins.
You what?
Yes, that was the news I got in the doctor's office. I never imagined I could have Dustin's children, let alone twins. That's why I was crying with joy. Peter was stunned. I looked him in the eye and showed him the ultrasound photo. See for yourself, I'm pregnant.
What? But you have an ovulation disorder.
That was treated a long time ago. Now I think the stress from my previous marriage was the cause.
That's ridiculous. You are infertile. You can't be pregnant.
Then, a woman in her late 20s, looking strong-willed, approached us.
Oh, Shannon.
Shannon, apparently Peter's current wife, walked up to him and suddenly slapped him.
What the? Shannon, what are you doing?
She shouted at the dumbfounded Peter. I just got the result. The infertility issue is with you. You're the sterile one.
What?
Shannon dropped some papers, which clearly stated that Peter's chance of having children was almost hopeless. Peter picked them up, trembling and staring in shock. She continued, How dare you and your mother call me a failure and infertile?
Shannon.
I was listening. She's your ex-wife, right? Mocking her and me when the problem was with you is just ridiculous.
But that can't be.
I can't stand you or your insane mother anymore. I'm divorcing your sorry ass.
Wait, Shannon.
She glanced at him with contempt and left. Just then, I was called to the cashier. As I stood up, I said to him, Who is a failure who can't have children now? Live miserably, you worthless jerk. I left Peter standing there, dumbfounded. Later, I heard from mutual acquaintances that Peter and Shannon divorced. Moreover, he had been making harassing comments at work, like,
"Women who can't have kids are worthless," or "You look like you can bear healthy children."
He was reported by the female employees and demoted. Unable to endure the shame, he resigned. Now, he's living in a shabby apartment, desperately looking for a job. Whether he will ever find happiness, I don't know. But it's no longer any of my concern. As for me, I gave birth to the twins safely. Dustin was delighted to help with parenting, and we are enjoying a loving family life. I want to protect this happiness I have now.
"Mom, Dad, make yourselves at home. I've already told Mindy you are staying for 3 weeks.
We always feel bad, Mindy. But our visit is for your sake too, so no complaints, right? Yes, it's fine. No complaints. This will be the last time anyway.
What?
My husband Dean and my in-laws simultaneously said that, looking dumbfounded. I didn't care and pulled out the divorce papers from the drawer and thrust them at him. I'm saying, I can't do this anymore. So let's get a divorce.
Divorce?
My name is Mindy, a 32-year-old housewife. I've been married to Dean for 2 years. We were colleagues working at the same company. Initially, I didn't feel any romantic feelings, but as we worked together on a project and spent more time together, we got closer quickly. That led to a relationship, and eventually, we got married. He wanted me to be a homemaker after marriage, so I left my job. Our married life started, and it was blissful. I took care of the house while he worked, and we spent quality time as a couple. Then after a year, I got pregnant, and he was overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father. Now, we live as a family of 3 with our 1-year-old daughter Sarah. However, lately, Dean has been a candidate for a promotion at work, which means a lot of overtime and weekend work. It's sad not having family time, but I appreciate it because we need the money with a child. But I still hope for basic communication. He used to always let me know if he was going to be late, but recently, he's stopped doing that. I want to know if he will be home for dinner, if he will catch the last train. I worry when I don't hear from him and he comes home past midnight. It's frustrating when he doesn't respond to my messages, so I end up blurting out complaints. Welcome home. I wish you'd let me know when you'll be late because of overtime.
How am I supposed to reply when I'm busy with work?
It wouldn't take more than a minute to send a message saying you will be late. Are you really that busy you can't spare a minute?
Yeah, I am. Is that a problem?
His defiant attitude was irritating. Fine. Did you eat?
I've already eaten.
I was about to warm up leftovers when he said that and headed to the bathroom. I thought, then why didn't you tell me you didn't need dinner? It feels like he's taking me for granted, and it irked me because it felt like he was looking down on housewives. We've had several small fights like this lately. Our marriage has become like this, and the thought of it makes me sad. He was so happy when our daughter was born. Maybe he has changed because he's too busy with work. Dean wasn't there for the birth, but he came to the hospital right after. Both our families were happy about Sarah, but in just a year, His attitude has changed so much. I try to talk to him to improve our relationship. I understand you're busy, but we should spend time together as a family on your days off, don't you think? He just lounges around at home on his days off. I don't mind if we don't go for drives. Just a walk in the park or a trip to the mall would be nice. I dread the day our daughter wants to play with her dad, and he's too busy. I don't want her to be sad. So I really want Dean to understand the importance of spending time with our family while we can. Despite my earnest efforts to convince him, he just dismisses me saying,
I'm too busy.
He wouldn't listen to me at all. Instead, he came up with an unbelievable idea.
If you're feeling lonely, I would just call mom and dad over.
What? You mean my parents?
What? No, not your parents. They live far away, so it's hard for them to come. I'm talking about my parents.
Huh?
Yeah, that's a good idea. You'll be less lonely, and I can make my parents happy by letting them see their grandchild. It's a win-win.
Wait a minute. That's not what I want.
Don't be modest. I will call them right away.
He said that and started calling his parents. The next day, they came to our house.
Where is my Princess Sarah? I want to hold her first.
No, hush. I'm going to be the first to hold her. Please, she just fell asleep. Keep quiet, please. My in-laws ignored me and woke Sarah by picking her up. She had just fallen asleep 5 minutes ago. She started crying, and they left her with me and went to the living room. After I finally got her back to sleep, they asked for coffee, as if they were in their own house. I reluctantly made coffee, thinking, well, you sure look comfortable being here. And that's when I noticed they had brought a lot of luggage with them. Nancy, Ben, what on earth have you brought? Their response was shocking. Just some clothes and stuff, because we are going to stay for a while. What? I was speechless. I texted Dan and called him. He finally picked up the phone during his lunch break, sounding annoyed.
Jeez, what do you want?
Listen, I didn't know your parents were staying. Aren't they just visiting during the day?
Well, I always come home late, so it's better if they stay over the night, right?
But they were saying they're staying for a while. How long are they planning to stay?
Maybe about 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
What are you complaining about? They're there for you. Be grateful. I'm busy, so I'm going to hang up now.
No, wait! He hung up. After that, he didn't respond to any of my texts. Following this incident, my in-laws began staying with us nearly every month for 2-week periods. They would entertain Sarah for a while, but then leave her alone or call me when she cried. And of course, they didn't do any housework and made a mess. I had to do all the laundry and meal preparation. Instead of just caring for my daughter, I now had to deal with my in-laws too, which only increased my stress. Dean seemed satisfied, thinking I wouldn't feel lonely with them around. He assumed their presence was helping me. Even when I said, "Stop inviting them," he would reply,
"Don't be shy,"
and never listened. And every month, at some random time, he would say,
"My parents are coming over this weekend."
I finally reached my limit and strongly objected. "That's enough. Don't invite your parents anymore."
Why not?
"It's too much with them here. On top of caring for Sarah, I have to take care of 2 more adults."
What's with that tone? I'm inviting them for your sake.
What I want is to spend time as a family with you and Sarah. It's not about being lonely.
That's selfish. I'm busy. That's why I'm inviting them.
When they are here, I have to be on my toes, and the housework increases. Not to mention the living expenses are going up.
You should just manage it better. Don't blame them. Anyway, they are coming over this month. They like this house and are looking forward to seeing Sarah.
That's not right. He again agreed to have his parents stay over. And as if it was normal, they came. Recently, they've gotten used to living here, and their demands have increased.
The water pressure in the shower is too low.
Mindy, make French toast for breakfast.
The food's been bland lately. Make something with more spice to it.
Do some shopping for me, Mindy.
Pick up the package I ordered online.
Oh, let's get rid of this furniture to make the room bigger.
Great idea. Then we can fit a sofa bed without it being cramped.
This room isn't yours, and I'm not your housekeeper. My frustration kept building up. I had reached my breaking point. I decided to talk to Dean once my in-laws' stay was over this month. I can't do this anymore. Stop inviting your parents.
What? Seriously, you're so selfish.
The selfish ones are your parents. It's like having 3 children around.
Stop with that tone. They are coming for you.
That's not true. They are here because it's convenient for them. If you really care about me, I don't want them coming over anymore.
What the hell? I won't allow you to treat my parents like that. And you want to deprive them of seeing their granddaughter?
Then take Sarah to see them at your parents' house.
I'm always busy with work. It's difficult for me. Even on my days off, I have to go to work more often now.
No matter what I said, he always used work as an excuse and wouldn't listen. It's almost ridiculous that he's this busy with work. I started to get angry at his company for putting so much work on him. It seemed like they were overworking him, maybe even violating labor laws. With these thoughts, I reached out to a former colleague, Rita. Is it really that busy now? Dean seems busier than when I was at the company. Her response was unexpected. No, not really. The last few years have been about the same as when you were here. Really? Dean always comes home after midnight and often works on weekends. He does? No, he usually leaves on time. He says he's going home to a delicious dinner you've made. I thought you two were a happy couple. You're kidding. He said that? Rita seems to realize then that Dean was keeping secrets from me. I would keep a closer eye on him. I left monitoring Dean at the office to her and started paying closer attention to his behavior at home. As much as I don't want to admit this, if he's lying about working overtime or on weekends, it's highly likely he could be cheating. I decided to hire a private investigator to gather solid evidence. As I observed him at home, I noticed something. No matter how lazy he was at home, he always kept his phone in his pocket. He took it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom and shower. He used to leave his phone on the table and often forgot where it was, asking me to find it. He would go,
Where did I put my phone?
In the bedroom and look under the bed, only for me to find it in the living room. That was his routine. He also recently mentioned wanting to get better clothes, which seemed like a change to impress someone else. Now that I suspected infidelity, everything seemed like an effort to look good for someone else. My suspicions about Dean made dealing with his parents even more burdensome. Why should I take care of his parents? Why he's possibly out with another woman? 2 weeks after I started suspecting Dean's infidelity, the detective agency sent me their report. Long story short, he was indeed having an affair with a junior colleague at his company. Rita also provided information about his behavior at work. They seemed quite close, often going to lunch together. Armed with this evidence, I decided to divorce Dean. First, I needed a job. I had to support my daughter as a single mother. I explained the situation to my parents, and my mother came over to take care of my daughter during the day while I went for job interviews. Soon, I landed a full-time job. Next, I needed to find a place for my daughter and me to live. That was quickly resolved when Rita told me of a vacant unit in her building. I had admired the layout and affordable rent when I visited her before. I contacted a real estate agent, viewed the apartment, and signed the lease. Everything was set for my new life. I was ready to bring Dean's world crashing down. As I was planning the divorce, he spoke to me one day.
My parents are staying over this week.
Oh, okay. It didn't matter to me anymore, so I didn't object.
I have a business trip this week. It won't be home.
Is that so? There were never business trips at that company. He was probably going on a trip with his mistress.
So I'm having my parents stay for 3 weeks this time. You wouldn't be lonely, right?
I'm happy that I get bring you down soon. I almost blotted out my true feelings, but I restrained myself. He seems excited. It's so obvious when you pay attention. I hadn't noticed before because I loved and trusted him so much. But now, there was no love left for him. I was ready to sever ties completely. A few days later, Nancy and Ben arrived. You are earlier than expected. Dean has a business trip today, right? We thought we would see him before he leaves.
Mom and Dad, make yourselves at home. I've told Mindy you're staying for 3 weeks.
We always feel bad, Mindy. Don't worry about it. But we are here for you, so no complaints, right? Dean prepared his suitcase and said,
I'm off then.
While we were talking, ignoring him, I looked at his parents and said, Yes, it's fine, no complaints, because this will be the last time.
What?
The three simultaneously looked shocked.
Mindy, what do you mean by the last time?
Exactly what it sounds like. I'm leaving this house today.
What? Leaving? What are you talking about?
That's ridiculous. You are being unreasonable.
How can you just decide this all of a sudden?
They were red-faced and angry. I calmly pulled out the divorce papers from the drawer and presented them to Dean. I'm saying I can't continue living like this with you, so let's get a divorce.
Divorce?
He was visibly shaken.
Why do you want a divorce?
His parents were also shocked. What are you unhappy about?
You should hash this out with him before making such a decision.
You might not be aware, but we're beyond repair. I said this and spread out the photos of his affair, which I had received from the detective agency on the table. Dean turned pale at the sight, and his parents were wide-eyed in shock. I can't continue our marriage with someone who cheats. That's why I'm divorcing you. I will be seeking alimony and child support.
But...
He was desperate and started begging.
Wait! I admit I had an affair. It was a moment of weakness. I haven't seen her since that time in the photos. Believe me. You will have trouble finding a place to live and a job if we divorce, right?
His lies were just too much. They only served to destroy any remaining trust. An affair with a junior colleague, and you say you haven't seen her since? And about your business trip, I heard from a former colleague that you've taken leave starting today. Where are you going and with whom?" He just sweated and fell silent. His parents were speechless, probably never imagining their son would cheat. "By the way, about what you said, I've already found a new job and a place to live, so no problem there. Just sign the divorce papers. If you refuse, I'm ready to take legal action." With that, I grabbed my pre-packed belongings and left the house with my daughter. Dean slumped on the spot, and his parents stood there dumbfounded. Thanks to overwhelming evidence, the divorce was finalized with Dean at fault. I received alimony and child support from Dean and his mistress. He struggled financially after paying the alimony, so the child support was in installments. If he missed any payments, I planned to take legal action. Not surprisingly, the affair scandal spread throughout Dean's workplace, and his mistress resigned due to lack of support. Dean, who had pretended to be a devoted husband, was now coldly treated by his colleagues. But he couldn't quit his job because he had to pay the alimony and child support. His parents, who had been staying over half a month at a time at our house and avoiding their expenses and chores, now struggle with increased living costs and the burden of housework. Apparently, they had been using the money they saved from staying with us to live luxuriously and couldn't adjust to their old budget. Dean sent me emails asking me to come back because his parents were struggling, but I ignored them and blocked his number and all contact. Meanwhile, I successfully started my new job, and my daughter was in daycare. I'm working hard as a single mother. The former colleague Rita and I visit each other's rooms on weekends and have fun. She adores my daughter. Having a reliable adult nearby is truly invaluable. I'm determined to work hard for my daughter and enrich my own life as well.
My loving husband, who is always kind to me. Then a call came to his mobile phone.
"I can't let go of my hands, so please put it on speaker."
After my husband asked me to do so, and I turned on the speaker, the woman on the phone said this. "By the way, is your wife still alive?" Huh? Who is this woman? What does she mean by, "Is your wife still alive?" I looked at my husband, and he too was frozen in the kitchen. The woman on the phone continued. "You mentioned something like her being unnecessarily healthy. Can't she just kick the bucket already? I've prepared that thing, but is it working? At this rate, it might not be enough." My husband, with a pale face, snatched the phone from me and repeatedly pressed the end call button. Silence fell in the living room. At that moment, I realized everything. Ah, yes, that's right. So that's what it was. "You have been betraying me like this." I immediately reported it to the police. "My name is Margaret, and I'm a 33-year-old working wife. I grew up in a relatively wealthy family, and my father runs his own company. My mother is a housewife. I took the junior high school entrance exam, and because I loved studying, I went to a prestigious feeder preparatory school. After graduating from college, I worked for a major trading company. I've always been confident in my health and physical strength, so I could handle challenging work. I've been with the company for 10 years now. Even though my job is quite busy, I somehow managed to handle it. That's possible because of the support from my husband. My husband's name is Bobby. We met a few years ago through a matchmaking activity. As I approached 30, I didn't have a boyfriend, let alone prospects of marriage. So I somewhat hurriedly registered with a matchmaking agency. That's where I was introduced to Bobby. He works as an engineer from home. Even though I earn more, I was impressed by his kind appearance during our first meeting. After several dates,
One day he says something like this to me.
Margaret, if you're okay with it, I'd like to have a serious relationship with the intention of getting married.
Bobby's earnest gaze made my heart skip a beat as I answered. Thank you. But you do know that my job is quite busy, right?
Yes, I understand it can be tough, especially in a trading company.
I don't plan on quitting my job even if we get married. Is that okay with you?
Yes, I work from home, so I have flexibility. I believe I can support you in household matters.
Really? I also thought you were wonderful, Bobby. Certainly, I appreciate your help. And so, half a year later, we had a speedy dating. Since then, 3 years have passed. At the same time as getting married, we bought a house under my name and started living together. I continued to work hard as usual. Bobby worked from home and took care of household chores. Of course, I also did my part as much as possible, but Bobby likely took on twice as many household responsibilities as I did. On the other hand, when it came to household expenses, I contributed almost twice as much as Bobby. Nevertheless, I never felt dissatisfied. Bobby was always kind to me, and I appreciated him taking care of the household chores. Given Bobby's long experience living alone, he was excellent in handling household matters. Especially, he was skilled in cooking. His curry, with a focus on spices, was exquisite. Whether it was Italian, Chinese, or French, everything he made was as delicious as dining out. As someone who used to eat pizza every day before marriage, this was the happiest thing for me. I deeply felt that marrying Bobby was a good decision. One day in our 3rd year of marriage, I was at work on this day when suddenly I received a call from my mother. It was unusual to receive a call during working hours, so I found it strange. Wondering about it, I answered the phone, and my mother tearfully delivered the news.
Margaret, calm down and listen. Your father...
My father passed away suddenly that day due to a heart attack. He was fine until that morning, but collapsed at work and was rushed to the hospital where he passed away. My father recently retired as president of his own company and became chairman of the board. He was full of life, laughing heartily about continuing to work vigorously. I rushed to the hospital in disbelief, but by then, he had already turned cold. It was pretty hard to say goodbye to my father, who loved me as much as he could while doing his job as president. I attended the funeral with Bobby, of course. Bobby did his best to support me as I continued to cry. I have never been so grateful to Bobby as I was at this moment. Sometime after the funeral, my mother called me.
Thank you for coming, Margaret. Today we're going to talk about your father's inheritance.
Mom, I have a job and I don't need the inheritance. Use it as a supplement for your life. As I expressed this, my mother shook her head.
Your father intended to leave you a proper inheritance. He had written a will for unforeseen circumstances. Accept it as your father's wishes.
After that, I received an explanation about the property my father left behind. Upon hearing it, I was surprised. My inheritance alone was well over $680,000 after taxes. I ended up going through the formalities and inheriting my father's estate. It's a lot of money, and the process itself is exhausting. Even in those moments, Bobby was kind enough to listen to me.
I see. Your father's estate is that much.
Yes, this is my father's sentiment. For the future, perhaps for the children we might have. And in case something happens to us, let's gratefully keep it. I sincerely expressed this from the heart. I had no qualms about telling Bobby about my inheritance. I knew he wasn't the type of person who desired extravagance.
However, isn't that something you received from her father? You should manage and use it.
Thanks, Bobby. He truly is a wonderful husband. He supported me not only when my father passed away, but also throughout the inheritance process afterward. I expressed my gratitude to him once again. A few months after my father's passing, Bobby's work suddenly became busier.
A new project is starting, and I might have to go out more often.
Seeing Bobby express his concern, I said, "You've always been there for me. I'll handle more household chores. Bobby, do your best too."
Thanks. I'll make an effort to at least continue cooking meals as usual.
Really? But you don't have to push yourself.
Making meals is like my purpose in life, so let me do it.
Thank you, Bobby. In this way, I took on more household chores as Bobby went out late. However, around this time, my health began to deteriorate. I would suddenly feel nauseous or be unable to get up. Despite being confident in my health and stamina, this began to affect my work. I went to the hospital, but they only said I was anemic. Even taking anemia medication didn't improve my symptoms. In fact, it seemed to worsen. I even discussed it with my husband. "Bobby, I've been feeling a bit unwell lately." Then Bobby looked worried and said,
Is that so? Did you go to the hospital?
"I did, but they said it's anemia. I've never had anemia before." Bobby looked troubled.
Then I need to make meals that are good for anemia. My work has been busy lately. I feel bad that your burden has increased.
"Don't worry about it. Your work is important too. Don't worry about me and do your best."
Yeah, but if it gets tough, be sure to tell me, okay?
And during that time, Bobby often stayed out late, but he continued to cook for me. After revealing my anemia to him, dishes with liver, meat, and spinach increased. Even though he was busy, Bobby cared so much about me. I'm really lucky to have such a good husband. I shouldn't make him worry. That's what I was thinking at that time. However, my health continued to deteriorate, and I eventually had to take a leave of absence. Even during that time, Bobby took time from work to support me diligently. But finally, even Bobby's cooking started to taste strange. I wonder if this poor health is affecting my sense of taste. From the anxiety of an uncertain future, I became increasingly unstable. On a holiday when Bobby was at home,
Margaret, what do you want to eat today?
He asked me gently as I slumped on the sofa. "Well, it's been a while since I've had your special spicy curry."
Oh, I see. Got it. Look forward to it. Margaret, please take your time and relax.
Bobby happily said that and put on an apron, heading to the kitchen. "Thank you. I'll take your word for it and take my time." Bobby's curry, starting from grinding the spices, is truly delicious. It stimulates my appetite, so even with my current health condition, I feel like I can eat that. I sat on the living room couch. I decided to check the operation of the new voice recorder I bought for the conference. I bought it so I could use it as soon as I got back to work. Not 20 minutes later, Bobby's cell phone on the table suddenly rang. "Bobby, your phone is ringing."
What? Who's showing up?
I looked into the screen and it appeared to be from an unregistered number. I don't know, it looks like an unlisted number.
Okay, then it's probably a wrong number or a sales call. You can leave it alone.
With a serious expression, my husband said this while grinding the spices. "Yeah, I understand." I returned my gaze to the voice recorder's manual. It's a high-performance one, and this will record the minutes of the meeting very well. A few minutes later, Bobby's cell phone again received a call from the same number as before. My husband ignored it, but the phone kept ringing. "It's been ringing several times already. Why not answer it once?"
Yeah, you're right, but my hands are covered in spices. Sorry, but can you put it on speaker for me?
I grabbed Bobby's phone and turned on the speaker to answer the call. "Hello, Bobby, it's me. I lost my phone, so this is my new number." The voice coming from the phone was a high-pitched woman. "By the way, is your wife still alive?" I froze at those words. Who is this woman? What does she mean by, "Is your wife still alive?" I looked at my husband, and he too was frozen in the kitchen. The woman on the phone continued. "You mentioned something like her being unnecessarily healthy. Could she hurry up and kick the bucket already? I've prepared that thing, but is it working? At this rate, it might not be enough." Bobby approached with a pale face. I instinctively took his phone. "Oh, Bobby, are you listening? Hurry up and follow the plan so we can be together. I'm looking forward to it. I wonder how much your wife's inheritance will be. Bobby snatched the phone back from me and frantically pressed the end call button. A silence fell over the living room. At that moment, I understood everything. The cause of my health issues and why Bobby had been absent from home. He planned to make me disappear, inherit my wealth, and be with this woman. Oh, that's what's been happening. You've been betraying me like this all along. Bobby, what does this mean? I asked calmly, and Bobby stammered.
No, it's not what you think. It's a misunderstanding. This is, just a prank from a female friend.
Right. I'm not taking it seriously either, but it did startle me.
Yeah, there's no way you'd believe something like this, right?
Right, but make sure to tell your female friend not to startle me like that. Well then, I'm going to the bathroom. I smiled at Bobby, who was sweating oil, and I headed for the bathroom. After confirming something in the bathroom, I took out my phone and dialed 911. Hello, is this the police? My husband is trying to harm me. Please, come quickly. The police said they would come right away. Since this place is close to the police station, they should arrive in less than 10 minutes. Bobby, looking nervous, watched me as I came out of the bathroom. What's wrong, Bobby? By the way, it smells good. Is the curry almost ready?
Oh, today's curry is fantastic. Look forward to it.
I kept an eye on Bobby to make sure he wouldn't run away. Whether he believed me or not, he continued to make curry with a relieved expression. Then, within less than 10 minutes, there was a knock on the door. When I answered, Bobby turned pale.
Police?
I'm being targeted by my husband and his affair partner. Lately, I've been feeling unwell, and I suspect I might have been poisoned. The police officers looked skeptical upon hearing this. Bobby hastily interjected.
No way. That can't be true, right? This is just my wife's imagination. She's been tired lately.
Bobby touched my shoulder, but I shrugged his hand away. My imagination? Then what about that phone call earlier?
The phone call? What are you talking about? Anyway, you're just tired. Calling the police like this. How about I accompany you to the hospital? Let's take a break, okay?
Bobby continued playing the role of a caring husband. The police seemed to believe him, and their suspicion turned towards me. At that moment, I pulled something out of my pocket. It was the conference voice recorder I was touching when the call came in. I pressed the playback button and let the contents of the call play out. Is your wife still alive? Let's get together and do it as planned as soon as possible. How much would your wife's inheritance be? The officers' faces grow grim as the woman's voice echoes through the doorway.
What? What the hell is this?
Bobby muttered, his face turning pale. I glared at him. Fortunately, I was adjusting the voice recorder right before the call. The entire conversation is recorded right here.
This can't be.
Bobby seemed on the verge of panicking, and suddenly he tried to run past the police. However, the police immediately chased him, tackled him, and apprehended Bobby. At that moment, a small vial fell out of Bobby's pocket. Please examine that bottle. I'm sure it contains poison. The police picked it up upon hearing my plea. With a stern expression, they informed Bobby,
Please come to the station to explain,
and led him away. Later, I underwent further questioning by the police. Following their advice, I received thorough medical examinations at the hospital. The results revealed chronic poisoning symptoms caused by a toxic substance. I submitted the findings to the police and promptly began treatment. Upon investigating the contents found in Bobby's pocket, it turned out to be the same type of poison that had been harming my body. Bobby was swiftly arrested. Upon further examination, it was revealed that the toxic substance was stolen from the pharmaceutical company where Bobby's affair partner worked. Bobby had been adding it little by little to my food, intending to take my life. Afterward, he planned to inherit my estate and join forces with his affair partner, as Bobby confessed. Both Bobby and his affair partner were arrested and are currently in the midst of legal proceedings. They are likely to be found guilty and sentenced to prison. Naturally, I divorced Bobby. I intend to claim damages from both him and his affair partner through a civil lawsuit. Bobby seems to have been disowned by his family due to the severity of the incident. I have no way of knowing how he will live after serving his sentence. On the other hand, my treatment concluded successfully, and I regained my health as before. I decided to sell the house and have returned to work, actively engaged in my professional life. I never imagined such a turn of events in my life, but I consider myself fortunate not to have lost my life. I'm done with marriage, but moving forward, I want to prioritize myself and embrace a brighter future ahead. My name is Lily, and I'm 28 years old. I met Connor at work, dated at 24, and got married after 2 years. I quit my job to be a full-time housewife. Leaving the workplace that held memories of being with my husband was a bit lonely, but everyone there was kind and warmly bid me farewell, saying, "Come back anytime." As we worked at the same place, I understand my husband's job. During busy periods, especially with almost daily overtime, it's essential to find ways for my husband to relax when he comes home. I do my best as a wife, giving my husband massages, using aromatherapy, and doing whatever I can. One day something happened. On that particular day, my sister-in-law visited our apartment. It was a Sunday, so my husband was also at home. "Hey, Lily, I came to hang out." Her sweet voice came through the intercom as if from nowhere. I reluctantly opened the door and pushed her away, saying, "What? You didn't even let me know you were coming." "You're still the same, Lily, always sharpening your claws. Today, I have something important to talk about." She entered the house with a sigh. Hey, if it's just talking, we can do it at the entrance, right?" I said, but my sister didn't pay attention and headed straight to the living room. Ugh, really, what's going on? Reluctantly, I also headed to the living room. As you might guess, I don't particularly like my sister. A real sister? Some might think so, but, well, the reason I dislike her will become clear later. As I headed to the living room, my sister was already sitting on the sofa, absorbed in her smartphone. "Hey, if you have something to say, spit it out." When I said this while standing, my husband, who was present, casually tried to calm the situation.
Easy there. Since she came all this way, why not make some tea for her?
"If you think that, then you make it." I thought that in my mind, but I didn't want to reveal my irritation in front of them. Reluctantly, I decided to make the tea myself. I made a pot of tea for 3 in the kitchen and returned to the side living room to find my husband sitting next to my sister for some reason. "Huh? Why are you sitting there? Normally, you'd sit on my side." While thinking about that, I offered tea to my sister. "Thanks, Lily. Sorry for coming out of the blue." "If you feel that way, then quickly tell me the reason. It's my day off after all." I blurted it out, and my sister says something I had never imagined. "I knew about Connor's day off. That's why I came today." "Huh? What does that mean?" As I started to say that, Connor interrupted.
"Lily, divorce me."
My husband opened his mouth without a pause. "Huh? Divorce? What's with you all of a sudden?" At that moment, it felt as if time had stopped. I didn't understand what my loving husband in front of me was saying. What is that word I just heard? What is it? Maybe I misheard? Or perhaps a dream? No matter how hard I try to think, I can't help but see my husband and my own sister in front of me. That is when I finally got my head around the fact that my husband had initiated the divorce. I reacted in the usual way you see in comic books and dramas. What was that just now? Then, without changing his expression, my husband uttered a cruel statement.
Your sister, May, is pregnant. So I'm thinking of divorcing you. Please, let us part ways.
May? My sister? Pregnant? It wasn't just about wanting a divorce from me. This person, my husband, impregnated my own sister while still being my spouse. Much later, I was hit with a circling sense of disgust, anger, and sadness toward my husband. Why? We talked about how having children can wait. I restrained my voice and questioned, to which my husband looked uncomfortably apologetic.
Sorry, but she means more to me now.
Beside him, my sister grinned, watching my reaction. How long have the two of you been in a relationship? This time, my sister opened her mouth to answer. About 6 months ago? On your birthday, remember? We all celebrated at home. That's when it started, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that time.
6 months ago, my parents held a birthday party for me. At that time, my husband and my sister, who was living with my parents, also attended, and we all spent a pleasant time together. Intoxicated, I drank a lot of alcohol and happily got drunk, falling asleep earlier than anyone else. Their relationship began that day, taking advantage of me being passed out. However, initially, my sister made advances, and my husband reportedly refused. After persistent advances from my sister, my husband eventually gave in, and they started meeting regularly. They had cultivated their love over the past 6 months, without me noticing. As a result, my sister, in just half a year of their relationship, became pregnant before me, the wife. In the end, my husband chose my sister over me. What is this? I don't understand. Why? How? Anger, misery, sadness. Various emotions are jumbled up, making my head even more unable to catch up. However, no matter how much I investigate the details, it won't change the relationship between the two. My sister being pregnant and my husband wanting to divorce me are both independent decisions. Ignoring my inner conflict, my sister laughed at me disdainfully. Her hateful attitude is even more annoying. Well, I feel bad for you too, Lily. But I fell in love with him, so I can't help it. Can't help it? What are you talking about? Expressing my emotions, I raised my voice. Come on, it can't be helped, right? I mean, look at us now. The baby is growing well in my belly. Can't you understand that? I have no idea about that. None of this would have happened if you hadn't been so forward. No, anything more I say will only make myself miserable. No matter how much I blame my sister, it doesn't change the fact that my husband chose her. The fact remains that my sister being pregnant with my husband's child and him accepting that reality prioritized the future with her over me. Once I accepted this, strangely, words to retort to my sister disappeared. Observing my reaction, my sister exchanged a satisfied glance with my husband, smiling contently. May, I need to talk to Connor. Can you give me a minute? The tone wasn't harsh, but I spoke in a surprisingly low voice, unlike my usual self. Alone with my husband, he seemed quite uncomfortable. Hey, do you really love May? Facing my question, my husband avoided eye contact and nodded slightly. Hey, can you tell me clearly? Did you consider marrying May because she's pregnant? Or were you serious about being with May instead of me from the beginning? Emphasizing my point, I questioned my husband clearly. In response, he finally opened his heavy mouth.
At first, I thought it would be okay if no one found out. I felt the responsibility to take care of the child after it happened. So, I decided to get married. And I have to divorce you, Lily, too.
I was genuinely disappointed. I thought there would be a firmer and more solid determination behind this decision. To think it was such a pathetic reason. Even for my husband, he really is a worthless man. Rather than sadness or anger, I felt more of a sense of disbelief. I left the scene with just saying, yes. The married life with my husband is ending like this. It's quite underwhelming. In my room, I muttered such a soliloquy. Truly, my marriage life was foolish and miserable. Thinking back, I never liked my sister, because she always took away things precious to me. If it was just clothes or accessories, I could tolerate it. But as we grew up, she even stole my boyfriend. If I tried to confront her, she would fake tears and gather people around her. Even when I finally bought the bag I'd always wanted after working part-time, she used it without permission when I wasn't around and splendidly broke it. When I asked her to compensate, far from reflecting, she ridiculed me. "What are you talking about? I used it for you because you don't deserve it, okay? It doesn't matter if it's broken. That bag doesn't suit you anyway." Getting angry at my sister's audacity, I raised my voice, and she immediately ran to our parents. "Mom, Dad, Lily is blaming me." Watching my sister's grand performance, I sighed in exasperation. "Hey, you used and broke my stuff without permission, right?" "It wasn't on purpose. It was cute, so I just borrowed it a bit." I didn't even question my parents about my sister's melodramatic act. Instead, my father and mother would unilaterally blame me.
"You're her big sister. You should be kinder to your younger sister." "Yeah, even though you're older, you're so disgraceful." While my parents blamed me, my sister smirked from the shadows. They always sided with my sister, ignoring everything I said. In the end, it followed the script of the perfect little sister. It's like she always orchestrates a situation where I, the older sister, appear to be the villain. While being blamed, I watched my sister, who made herself cry coldly. I've always despised her for that. Since becoming an adult, I've tried to keep my distance from my sister as much as possible. That's why I didn't tell my sister until just before I got married. And yet, I never thought that even my own husband would be taken from me. Surely, she doesn't genuinely love my husband. It's just that, much like in the past, when she stole my boyfriend, she can't stand the fact that I'm leading a happy married life. That's the kind of person my sister is. Shortly after calming my emotions, my sister entered the room. "Did you talk with Connor?" My sister grinned as usual. "I'm sorry, but could you not come in here without permission?" "Oh well, that's how it is. Is it okay to call it a divorce? This house and Connor are all mine. Lily, you're in the way and this house is already mine, so pack your things and get out." My sister got even closer to my face. "There's no way you, Lily, can beat me, idiot." The two-faced attitude from earlier disappeared, and now she had a clearly condescending expression on her face. My sister returned to the living room with a victorious look on her face, satisfied after insulting me to death. At that moment, the red devil within me awakened. Enough is enough. I can't take it anymore. That wicked woman, she's not even my sister. I've endured this far too long, but now I've reached my limit. I won't let things go the way my sister wants. I'll mess up her little happiness. I returned to the living room and declared loudly to my husband and sister, "I won't get a divorce." "Huh? What are you talking about, Lily?" "That's right, Lily. What are you saying at this point?"
In front of me, my husband and sister looked dumbfounded. But I don't care about their reactions now. Are you listening? I'll say it again. I won't get a divorce. Did you think I'd agree to a divorce just because you're having a child? Did you really think I would agree to a quick divorce? I could see surprise in my husband's eyes and a hint of panic in my sister's face. Are you idiots? I won't let things go your way. One vulgar word after another came out, even surprising myself. Oh, what's wrong with you, Lily? Do you understand the situation? I'm pregnant. Pregnant? So what? The agitation in my sister's expression was palpable. That's a bummer. Whether you're pregnant or not, it's none of my business. I won't agree to a divorce, and if you're not satisfied, we can go to court or whatever.
Court? Isn't that too extreme?
My husband, frightened by the word court, contorted his face. I lashed out at my pale sister. From now on, I'm cutting ties with you. You're no longer a sister to me, but just a cheating partner of my husband. Of course, I'll demand compensation, so be prepared. My sister wore an expression of despair at my declaration of estrangement. It seemed like she had aged decades in an instant. I had never seen such an expression on her face before. It seemed my words had a significant impact. I guess I finally got my revenge for all this. I was strangely filled with contentment. I dragged my slumped sister and opened the door, tossing her personal belongings out the front door. Come on, hurry up and leave. If you linger any longer, I'll call the police. My sister, looking frustrated, hastily gathered her scattered belongings and left. I then turned to my husband. He hung his head with drooping shoulders. Just so you know, I'll be seeking compensation from you two. True to my words, I hired a lawyer and completed various procedures. After dragging out the divorce proceedings, I finally divorced my husband when my sister gave birth. My sister and my ex-husband, however, happily celebrated their union, thinking they could finally be together. Isn't the world tougher than that? Taking advantage of this situation, I returned to my previous job. Of course, I shared all the details about my past with the company. At that time, I, who was working hard, was hired immediately, while my husband, who was working for the same company, faced a chorus of criticism. I heard that he got his wife's sister pregnant even though he has a wife.
What? That's too sleazy, isn't it?
Isn't his ex-wife the one who recently returned to work? I feel sorry for Lily. I couldn't bear it if I were her. The rumors about my husband spread throughout the office. Of course, I spread the rumors wherever I went. Feeling uncomfortable at work, my husband voluntarily resigned a month later. Afterward, he and my sister lived in a condo, but due to financial issues, they quickly moved to an apartment. My sister reportedly cried to our parents, saying, I don't want to lower the quality of my life. However, naturally, at the same time, she exposed everything to our parents. Our parents, who used to always support my sister in the past, were understandably furious this time. They officially cut ties with my sister.
What's the matter with you seducing your sister's husband? Exactly. On top of that, being pregnant with your sister's husband's child. How can we face the neighbors?
Even our father and mother were furious about this. It's no surprise that my sister shouldn't expect any support from our parents. I wondered if I went too far. Am I scheming? But compared to what that despicable woman did to me, I think I was quite lenient. I managed to ease the tension with our parents, who had always favored my sister, and successfully collected compensation from both my ex-husband and my sister. I've also returned to my previous job, so I no longer have financial worries. Now it's their turn to experience hell. After having my life ruined by them, I plan to focus on enriching my personal life and prioritize my own happiness moving forward.
My wife's food is terrible. I'm finally going to have some good food today, so I've been looking forward to this since last night.
My husband drunkenly belittled me. My food is terrible? What are you talking about? You haven't had my cooking for weeks. You have been eating that homemade meal by your boss's pretty daughter, haven't you? I've been waiting for this day. I'm gonna tell them everything. My name is Cheryl. When I hear there's a sale at the local supermarket, I go there even if there's nothing in particular I want to buy. I'm 40 years old. Everything has gone up in price lately, so it's better to buy when it's on sale and freeze it to save money. I will have to work on my electric bill in the winter. Haha. Now I'm more interested in saving money and having a vegetable garden. When I was a little younger than now, I had no knowledge or interest in such things. The only thing I was interested in was my husband. I was in my late 20s at the time, married for 3 years to my husband Evan, and we had no children. I was wondering if it was time to think about having kids. My husband did not seem to be interested in having a child, saying that we should let nature take its course, and that we did not have to force ourselves to have a child. He has no idea that a woman's body has a limit. Before we got married, my husband was the one who used to talk about having 2 children. Could it be that he doesn't want children anymore? Or is it a problem of financial insecurity due to the fact that my husband has not been promoted or paid well in years, even though his company has a high salary scale? There were a number of things that came to mind, but I couldn't get an answer from my husband, and all I could do was fumble around. Gradually, my husband became reluctant to discuss the possibility of having children. He would snap at me and say,
Why not just the 2 of us?
It's not that we can't just be a couple. I love my husband and want to be with him forever. But it is also true that I want to have children, and it was extremely difficult for me to choose between the 2. As the number of arguments increased, there was no more opportunity for my husband and I to have a baby. And so, there was an awkward atmosphere between us. I don't know whether it was because of this or not, but my husband also stopped coming home for work, and the gap between us grew deeper and deeper. This made me reflect on the fact that I may have been too busy with thinking about having children. My husband may have had his own feelings, but I may have been putting my own wishes first, I thought. When I stopped talking about the child, my husband's attitude became calm, and it seems as if things were back to normal. However, it had become a tradition for us to have dinner every year on our wedding anniversary at the restaurant where he proposed to me. My husband would go straight to the restaurant after work, and I would dress up at home and meet up with him in front of the restaurant. I loved this day more than my own birthday because it was like when we were still dating. However, on our wedding anniversary this year, my husband did not show up at the restaurant. I waited for hours in the rain under an umbrella in front of the restaurant, and when I called his phone, he did not pick up. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch having a glass of wine. Where have you been?
Oh,
He saw me all dressed up and remembered what day it was and apologized. It seems he had completely forgotten about our anniversary. I had written it on the calendar at home, but my husband didn't see it. My dissatisfaction with him about not wanting to have kids, and him not telling me how he really feels. I couldn't stop my feelings that I had been pretending to ignore from overflowing in my heart. Of course, I was sad that he forgot our anniversary, but more than that, I felt as if my husband was neglecting me, so I was very frustrated. I couldn't help but blame him. What am I to you? Our wedding anniversary ended in a big fight. Someone once told me that it is a bad habit of women to be emotional. I think that's true, but I just couldn't control my emotions that day. My husband apologized to me later, but he didn't look me in the eye and didn't seem sincere either. On top of that, he never came home again, and the gap between us, which I thought had almost been closed, became even wider than before. Whenever I see him, he sometimes looks unhappy. He won't even smile at me anymore. I thought we might not make it. Just as I was thinking that, I got some very bad news. "Hey Cheryl, I saw your husband walking with a woman the other day." "What?" I was walking back home when I came across my neighbor, and she said that to me with a smirk. Immediately, the woman next to her said, "Hey, Naomi, shut it. You can't just say that, can you?" But her eyes looked a little amused. They were both hoping to hear what I have to say. It shows on their faces. This is what I hate about having neighbors. At first, I tried to dodge them, thinking that they must have mistaken by someone else or something, and that I didn't want to deal with these two rumor mongers. But I was still curious. "What do you mean?" "I saw him arm in arm with a girl who looked like a college girl. And your husband hasn't been home much lately, has he? His car isn't in the parking lot at night, too." Stop checking whose car isn't in the parking lot. It's disgusting. That's what I thought, but held back from saying it out loud. Then the neighbors continued. "He's cheating on you, right?" They were looking at me as if to say, "Tell us something more interesting." My husband cheating on me is not possible. But is it true that he's with a college girl? How on earth did they know each other? Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. I want to believe my husband, but the way things are going, there is a good chance that he's really in love with her. But without proof, I didn't want to believe it yet. I thought the neighbors wouldn't know the details anyway. It's just a misunderstanding. I decided to just let the conversation slide. And later, I went to a detective agency to investigate my husband. About a month later, my husband's company held an annual party. It's a party that is attended by the company bosses and employees, as well as their families every year. Of course, I attended the party with my husband.
No, I'm telling you, my wife's food is so bad. That's why I'm looking forward to a good meal today.
My husband, who was a little drunk, said this to a junior colleague who was sitting next to him. The junior doesn't know what to say back to my husband.
No. I think that's a little too much to say. Haha.
He's smiling nervously.
No, it's true. I've been eating really bad food lately.
He keeps insisting that my food is bad. Okay. I know it's not what I planned, but since he's trying to pick a fight. What are you talking about? You eat at your mistress' house every day. By bad food, you mean your boss's daughter's cooking, right? The CEO and his wife, who were sitting behind me, gasped and turned around. My husband was looking at me with his mouth hanging open.
What? What are you talking about? Are you drunk already? Mistress? My boss's daughter? What are you talking about?
My husband tried laughing at me. You're the one who is drunk, aren't you? You haven't eaten my cooking in ages. You must have mistaken me for someone else because you're drunk. I didn't miss the look of shock on my husband's face when I said that. Then, the CEO and his wife came in.
The boss's daughter? Are you talking about my daughter?
I was going to bring this up with the CEO and his wife at the end of the party. But my husband has moved up the schedule. I was going to reveal everything here anyway. My dear husband, get ready to go to hell. I nodded silently to their question and pulled out a photo from my bag. I showed them a picture. The picture showed my husband and a young woman coming out of the hotel arm in arm. The CEO and his wife turned pale when they saw it. But my husband remained puzzled because he had not seen the picture yet.
This is...
The CEO and his wife glared at my husband.
What is it? Show me the picture.
My husband looked troubled in the face of the unusual anger of the CEO and his wife, and pulled out the photo from my hand.
What?
My husband's eyes go wide, and he goes rigid. That's the one you are having an affair with, right?
You knew? You've got to be kidding me. You're messing with my daughter.
The boss tried to grab my husband by the chest. My husband dodged his boss's attack, but was stunned as if he had no idea what was going on.
Your daughter?
You didn't know? She's their daughter.
What?
He sounded like he was about to faint.
Seriously?
My husband looked at me and the picture oddly. He finally understood his position. The CEO and his wife told my husband,
I will listen to what you have to say.
We, the CEO and his wife, left the area and invited the daughter to another room to discuss the situation. Their daughter showed up after being summoned by her parents. Caroline is still a college student. I heard she is smart and as beautiful as an actress. I thought she was too good for my husband. Caroline met my husband at the party her friend invited her to. My husband had told her that he was single, and he had always kept his wedding ring off while they spent time together. Caroline broke down and cried on the spot. I believed you when you said you would marry me. Caroline cried on the CEO's chest.
But I'm serious.
How can you get married if you're not even divorced yet? Caroline's mother yells at him.
Right.
My husband's voice became smaller. You wanted me to divorce you because of the thing about having a child, didn't you? That's why you're suddenly not interested. He looked back at me with a puzzled look on his face.
How did you know?
I know, because the detective agency told me that you wanted to get a divorce before anyone found out about the affair. You didn't want to pay me alimony when I found out about the affair, right? You wanted to pretend that you suffered emotional distress because your wife kept insisting on having a child. It seems that you have put a lot of thought into it, huh? My husband didn't argue with my words. Instead, he kept looking down with a pale face. He didn't even make eye contact with me.
You are a disgusting excuse of a man, you know that.
The boss yells at my husband too.
I apologize for what I did to your daughter, but I really meant to marry her. Shut up! If you're serious, you should get a divorce and tell her how you feel. You started out cheating on your wife, so what's the point of being serious? Can you believe that?
The husband was at a loss for words when Caroline came to him and said, I can't believe anything you say now. Caroline was in tears.
Don't you ever hang around my daughter again. You're fired. No way.
My husband was more shocked by this than hearing Caroline's words. This is all that I wanted. I'm divorcing you too. I want alimony.
I don't understand why this is happening.
I beg your pardon? I don't understand why this is happening. Didn't you create this mess? And what you said earlier about the food being bad. I'm going to tell them.
Tell them what?
What? Weren't you just telling everyone that Caroline's cooking was so terrible? Even though she had probably worked so hard on it. Poor Caroline.
Oh, wait. Don't say that.
Why are you in such a panic now? You're the one who started the whole thing, aren't you? The guy who organized the party where you and Caroline met told me all about your situation. You said that she's cute, but the only thing that's not good about her is that she doesn't cook well. She will make a good wife, you said. But that's much like being a married couple. You're going to have to work, go home. And a home-cooked meal is an inevitable part of that. Yeah, you said you've been wanting a good meal for a while.
Shut up, Cheryl.
I won't shut up. You said you were looking forward to today's food because Caroline's cooking is so bad. In other words,
Stop it.
the boss and his wife stared at me and my husband as we argued. Caroline is sobbing into her father's chest, while he is staring at my husband through clenched teeth. The CEO's hand was clenched so tightly that it looked as if he might break something.
No, sir, this is not.
My husband tried to make excuses as if it were a joke, but it was too late. There was no way the parents could stop their anger at him for wronging their daughter. The CEO and his wife start slapping and hitting my husband. Isn't that assault? Maybe. But if it were me, I'd have done that. It would be unforgivable for a parent to have their young daughter, who is still in college, be treated like that. Besides, my husband was her first boyfriend. I don't think it's right for an adult to have a date with a college girl. And I also wonder about Caroline's friend who had invited her. I also think Caroline should be a little more aware of the world. But it's still a case of an adult cheating a younger person. Whatever the background, it is 100% my husband's fault for pretending to be single and having a girlfriend when he's supposed to be married. I think he should be thankful that he lived through the slapping. My husband seems to finally understand what he had done. In the end, he was fired from the company and had to pay compensation to Caroline, as declared by the CEO. The CEO of the company has a number of group companies, including affiliated companies and regular clients, and it seems that he issued a directive not to hire him ever again. Needless to say, this made my husband's job hunting quite difficult. We divorced after making sure that the alimony and property rights were taken care of. He lost his place of residence because I got the house as part of the property division, and he moved back to his parents' house. But when his parents found out the truth about the divorce, they kicked him out. It seems that he was unforgivable, not only for cheating on me, his wife, but also for having laid his hands on a college girl who was still a minor until recently, and deceiving her. Furthermore, my in-laws demanded that he apologize to me. So I received another letter of apology. It is totally unacceptable, especially for someone of his age to have to be told by his parents to apologize properly. My ex-husband himself seems to regret having lost his life over an affair, but it was too late. At his new job, he's working in an environment that is friendly to upper management, but very unsympathetic to the staff, and so he's working for about half of his former salary. It is not easy for a man in his 40s to change jobs, so he has no choice but to stay there. He lamented that he couldn't get a promotion at his old job because of the seniority system. I guess he would have been happier. I, on the other hand, remarried at the age of 30 to a man I met through a friend. We just had a baby girl, so we are now a family of 3. No, I'm sorry, I lied. My daughter is now 4 years old. I actually have a boy now too. My daughter is so naughty. She's so naughty that she hides things and plays peekaboo. Recently, catching bugs seems to be her favorite hobby, and my purse was once covered with bugs. My daughter says, "It's a surprise for you, Mommy." It's hard for me, who hates bugs. Ha ha ha. Still, I wanted to make her happy, so I told her I was happy even if it was a lie. But the next day, she gave me a lot more bugs as a present again. Oh. She speaks so much that it's hard to believe she's 4 years old. I'm always amazed at how naturally she joins in our conversations. I've heard that girls grow up so fast, but I didn't expect this much. My child is cheerful and full of energy, but she's a kind girl who gives me presents when I'm tired, even if there are bugs, and wants to massage my husband's shoulder when he comes home from work late at night, even though she feels sleepy. Having them in my life, I thought that my ex-husband and I were destined to divorce, and this remarriage was also destined to happen. My life has been full of many things, but I'm happy every day to be blessed with my new family.